rain that's on the road to dissipate. And in fact, having said that, it's just starting at the start and finish line at least to spit with rain once again. It's a real headache for the teams, this, knowing exactly what to do, because they've had no wet running all weekend either. It's been dry for the Formula 3 activity, and therefore it looks like they're going to have another green flag lap just to get the drivers used to the wet road. After yesterday's dominant win, Esteban Ocon is the man who leads the championship now from Lucas Auer up to second, and Max Verstappen is third from Tom Blomqvist, Antonio Fuoco, Jordan King, Antonio Giovinazzi, Ed Jones. The non-starting yesterday, Nicholas Latifi, and then Jake Dennis round out the top 10. Esteban Ocon stretching this advantage, and with Tom Blomqvist and Antonio Fuoco not scoring yesterday, they dropped down the order and indeed are tied on 4th. Felix Rosenqvist had a pretty miserable time yesterday in the race, but did qualify well for this second race of the weekend, so he's going to be one to watch potentially off the front of the grid. Felix Morales is a point behind him in the title race. That is Mitch Gilbert, Roy Nissany, Spike Goddard, Dennis van der Laar, Gustavo Menezes, and the one-pointers, Felipe Guimaraes, Sean Galile and Riccardo Agostini. They are the top 20 point scorers. John Bryant Meisner has scored a point as well. Hector Hurst has yet to, so also Michele Beretta, Tatiana Calderon and Jules Shimkoviak. So a number of drivers keen to try to get their first points. You only score points if you're in the top 10. That is not easy to break into, because this year's championship is very, very competitive, and of course around here overtaking is not that easy either, and on a wet road it is even more so. Now, the Formula Renault race about an hour ago had utter carnage with Tatja's chassis strewn around the circuit. For this race, fingers crossed, the road is a little bit drier. You can see as Antonio Fuoco turns his way out of the hairpin at Poimero, he's on wet tyres. The rain is falling once again, so that really solves that question. Goes down through the chicane, heading downhill towards the start and finish line. And a number of drivers keen to nip through the pit lane and try and put in as many installation laps as they can here in order to get a familiarisation with the track conditions. Some people are still smiling, thankfully, down on the grid, despite the conditions. Pole position will be Esteban Ocon once again for qualifying for this race. The field split into two groups. Whoever was the faster of the two quickest drivers out of the two groups, it was Esteban Ocon, will take pole position, and everybody in that group in order lines up behind him. So Ocon is on pole position. Max Verstappen, who was second in that group, lines up third. Jake Dennis, who was third in the group, lines up fifth, and so on, with on the opposite side of the grid the cars out of the other group headed by Felix Rosenqvist ahead of Tom Blomqvist and then Antonio Giovinazzi. There is Ocon, the Lotus Formula 1 junior driver. He drives in this for Prema Power Team. He has a Mercedes engine in the Dallara. It's an all Mercedes front row, and then you've got 4 Volkswagen engine cars behind. The field forming into place, and if anything it is getting wetter, not drier. So about 20 minutes ago there was optimism that we might be looking at drying conditions, but not anymore. It's getting wetter and more treacherous. A complete contrast from yesterday. Couldn't be more different. The field just about complete, and as soon as everybody is in position, then we can look forward to what should be a 29 lap race, or 35 minutes. And I suspect we are going to be looking at time rather than the number of laps here, given the slower pace that's going to result. Now, yesterday's race had 2 safety car periods in it. We'll see whether in the wet we're going to have the same. Wet tyres, wet Hankook tyres on Felix Rosenqvist's car. Felix, who comes into this race outside the top 10 in the championship, hunting for a decent result as the countdown continues on the grid. Rosenqvist's best race result so far has been a 5th, and he came into this year as a tip for the championship because he's twice won, for example, the F3 Masters at Zandvoort. He has been a race winner in the championship in seasons past, both as the European and indeed the FIA, the F3 Euro Series, I should say. But it's just not happening for him in the Lucas Motorsport car. Big frustration for Rosenqvist, and this really is the opportunity to turn it all around. Max Verstappen, perhaps the bravest man on the grid. He has got a great deal of car control, and he's got no imagination the way that he flings the cars between the barriers here. At the top of the circuit is the sequence of corners at Foch, through which, if you go and watch a Formula 3 car, you get a great idea of who the really brave people are. And Verstappen carries so much more speed than anybody, takes more curb or here pavement really than anybody else, and it translates into a good lap time. And whereas some of them always look on the edge, Verstappen doesn't. He's able to harness all of that aggression and speed to good effect. He lines up third on the grid. He raced well yesterday, and Tom Blomqvist is back to the pointy end of the grid. He lines up 4th. This is the first race that he hasn't had to worry about a 10 place grid drop for a change of engines. If you change engines, you get this grid drop for 3 consecutive races. Well, that now is done. So Blomqvist lining up 4th with the Carlin Run Dallara Volkswagen. And in these conditions, we shall see whether he's inherited his father's car control. His dad, Stig Blomqvist, the former World Rally champion. Jake Dennis was on the rookie podium yesterday. He took his best result of the season to finish in 4th place overall. And Jake Dennis, 10th in the championship in the Racing Steps Foundation colours. He drives for Carlin. And Jake was very impressive yesterday. So he managed to repel a challenge from Jordan King and finish 4th overall, 3rd in the rookie class, 6th on the grid. Yet another of the Carlin drivers in the Jagonia I Am with Carlin. That means tasty chicken with Carlin. Antonio Giovinazzi is the man behind the wheel. The same livery has carried on Tom Blomqvist's car. Giovinazzi, last time out at Hockenheim, just had a day of bad starts. Well, he can't afford to do anything like that here. The track's not wide enough, and overtaking is hard enough. If you make it difficult for yourself by a bad start, you're really up against it. So Giovinazzi needs to get a good start out of all of this. Then you've got Dennis van der Laar with his Mercedes-engined Dallara, back to Prema Power Team now on the grid. Van der Laar yesterday pulled off probably the move of the race, round the outside to gain a place at Pont Oscar, which is the uphill hairpin going under the little bridge. It didn't get him into the points, but it was worth doing, it was worth watching. So van der Laar has proved he can overtake. He's proved he's aggressive, and we'll see how this race pans out for him, whereas poor old Mitch Gilbert yesterday only got as far as Pont Oscar on the opening lap before he was used as a ramp by Alex Torriel. Gilbert was out on the spot, the Australian driver, hoping for better today. It's not been a bad season, in fact, for Mitch Gilbert. He's had a 6th as his best, 13th in the championship coming into this race. The grid is complete. Roy Nissany put to the back of it after an incident on Friday in qualifying. John Bryant Meisner is there for Fortec. He qualified well also yesterday, putting himself to 5th in his group, starting on the 5th row, therefore 9th on the grid. John Bryant Meisner in his 2nd year of Formula 3 racing. And then to round out the top 10 on the grid is last year's British champion, in fact, Jordan King. You see everybody on the wet tyre. Jordan King, again, raced well yesterday. This year's entry, so competitive, it is rich in talent, and therefore something has to give. So there are all these potential race winners. By pure maths, there's only going to be one, but a few scalps can be claimed here. And Jordan King, as an example, 2nd year Formula 3 driver, Esteban Ocon on pole in his 1st season, makes his efforts look very impressive indeed. But with all of these very competitive drivers, inevitably a few reputations are going to be bruised and battered at the end of this season. And a long season it is, 33 races, the bulk of which support the DTM. There are standalone events, such as here at Pau for the Pau Grand Prix. Race 3 of the weekend will be for the coveted tag, but the Pau circuit has been a regular over the years to Formula 3 cars. The championship also goes to Spa, supporting the WTCC, and it goes to Imola in October. Lucas Auer, a winner this year, is a long way back on the grid. He lines up 12th. Only 6th in his group, and the young Austrian knows that he's in for a pretty difficult race here to try to make progress. And bear in mind as well that the qualifying session from which this grid is based was also the session out of which they took their 2 best times, this being the best, the 2nd best giving you the race 3 grid. So if you qualify badly, you've got 2 duff races in prospect, unless you can really work some magic through the pack. Sean Gallardi just had a look at. He's lined up 13th on the grid. He was in the points yesterday, his best finish of the season. Number 1 is Nicholas Latifi, who didn't even take part in the race yesterday. He had a problem on the grid, so he took the steering wheel off, put it back on again, fired up the engine. That's the kind of racing car version of a reboot, I suppose. And that worked, and he got away, and that was all fine. And then coming up to the grid, as the car slowed and bunched up, somebody hit him, and he damaged his suspension, and he headed to the pit lane, and that was that. So poor Latifi never got into the race. But he is very keen indeed here to prove just what he can do. He lines up on the 7th row, starts therefore 14th. Pole position, it's a 1-by-1 staggered grid, of course. Pole position on the outside of the circuit. And yesterday we saw Esteban Ocon, as the race started, swoop across and cover the line from Lucas Auer, who was with him at the front of the grid. Well, it's the same livery of car he's got to defend from today, but it's Felix Rosenqvist who is going to be lining up on the inside of that front, in quotes, row of the grid. So the grid is now being cleared. At the 1-minute board, all the engines will fire up, and then everybody will make their way off the grid, umbrellas and all. And there's going to be a lot of spray for the drivers to contend with, and traction will be at a premium. So in a moment, the 1 minute board will be shown, engines will fire up. Another shot of the Hankook wet tyre that's going to have a lot of work to do on the cars. The green flag shown at the rear of the grid. So everybody is present and the engines will fire up shortly, and then we will be in business for round 8 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. The Grand Prix de Pau is the event at which it races. The Pau Grand Prix itself, as I mentioned earlier, is for race 3. And the very enthusiastic fans who have a great weekend here. It's absolutely full of action. They were racing until almost midnight last night, in fact, with the French one-make races taking centre stage in the darkness. They get a lot of racing over the course of the day, and a very appreciative crowd as well. So they will be no doubt cheering for Esteban Ocon, the home hero, the French driver, who has been on pole position for each race thus far and will be on pole for race 3 as well. He's the only man to have won more than once this season. He has taken 3 victories. So Ocon comes into this really as the man to beat now. He's establishing himself in the championship. And if he can take another win, maybe 2 more wins out of the weekend, his championship advantage is really going to ramp up. And I think psychologically as well, that's going to break 1 or 2 people who may not really have given too much credence to the young French driver in his first year in Formula 3, but you just wouldn't think it. He drives like a veteran. He may not have quite the same drama in his driving as, say, Max Verstappen does, but even so, Ocon is able to translate the speed and the smoothness into results in a kind of Alain Prost fashion. So the grid is complete. The bedraggled mechanics making their way back to the pit lane, and the last of the engineers will fire up the engines, make their way to the pit lane, and then hope for the best in what could be a rather rowdy 8th round of the championship. It just depends, I suspect, on how heroic some of the drivers feel like being, and indeed how the track conditions are, whether they're going to improve or worsen. So the 1 minute board is now shown, and the mechanics will leave the grid and the race will start behind the safety car, due to the fact they've had so little wet running. It's not pouring down, I'll grant you, but it's so treacherous, and therefore the race director has decided, and it's a good idea for safety purposes, that the race will start behind the safety car. So we go straight into the race, and when the drivers have had maybe 2 laps to assess the conditions, then we will go green and get racing underway proper. But the race will start behind the safety car, which you can see at the front of the grid there. It was used twice in the dry yesterday for incidents. Now in the wet, it will lead them away and get the race underway in a moment. So everybody's got an engine that's running, and therefore anybody that was hoping to gain places from a standing start has that denied. They're going to have to do it from a rolling start, and that might just affect 1 or 2 drivers' chances. So the field blasts away. You can see how slippery it is, and when we get to racing conditions, I expect the spray to be kicked up even more so. Down towards turn 1 they go, and then out of that right-hand kick towards the Virage de la Gare. The grid has Esteban Ocon on pole position from Felix Rosenqvist, then Max Verstappen and Tom Blomqvist on row 2. Row 3, Dennis and Giovinazzi. Row 4, Van der Laar and Gilbert. Row 5, Brandt Meisner and King. The 6th row, Ed Jones lining up alongside Lucas Auer. Sean Galal is alongside Nicholas Latifi. Then it's Menezes and Felix Morales a long way back. Tatiana Calderon crashed in qualifying, but she's ahead on the grid of Antonio Fuoco. Then it's Guimaraes and Agostini with Alex Torre on 21st. His teammate Mike Goddard crashed as well yesterday in qualifying. He's 22nd. Then it's Beretta, Shimkoviak, Hurst and Roy Nissany at the back. So the cars not able to overtake, of course, while we have this safety car start. They're turning now through the Lycée Barthou, and then the speed builds as they work their way towards Parc Beaumont, past the big hotel on the left-hand side, and then they flick through the chicane at Foch, which is where Spike Goddard and Tatiana Calderon came to grief in qualifying yesterday. Very much a wet session this, with the drivers having to cope with the slippery track conditions. Reduced pace for the moment behind the safety car. They turn through Foch. You can see the big pavement on the inside, which is where a lot of drivers were clipping yesterday, and that was unsettling the cars. The track itself, 2.7 kilometres long, 29 laps or 35 minutes is the duration. 80 kilometres in total, and with the safety car start, the field turning its way now down through the hairpin at Bois-Mirault. Normally this is a quick section as they sweep downhill, and then there's that little chicane put in just to slow the cars before they get to the end of the lap. We had Formula Renault cars spinning when they put down the power into the barriers at that part of the circuit in a previous race this morning. So the driver having to assess where the grip is. And of course, when we go green, Esteban Ocon is going to be the pioneer. He is going to be the driver who has to, in race conditions, assess just what the conditions are like. So the cars head uphill. It's a very steep climb, this, the Boulevard des Pyrénées, up towards Pont Oscar, which is where we had the first lap accident yesterday. And the driver's weaving around to try to put some warmth into the tyres, to try and get some grip that they're going to need when we get the race underway proper. Yellow flags being waved by the marshals, but Esteban Ocon controls the pace. He's probably one of the few people that really wants the safety car to stay out for as long as possible, because it means he's got less opportunity to be attacked by those behind. But I think we will get some good battling. It's not easy to make progress around here, but we saw in yesterday's race that it can be done. And with the circuit being slippery, that's going to be another factor. I'm sure it's going to catch out one or two drivers and perhaps therefore spice up the odd battle if somebody puts a wheel wrong. We were seeing earlier when the cars were making their way round to the grid that just a little bit of throttle too much too soon out of a hairpin like this, for example, and the back snapping away is certainly feasible. Well, if that's happening in the race, then it could give the guy behind an opportunity to challenge. Alex Torriel there getting all sideways it was, coming out of the Lycée Barthou hairpin. Foch in the dry is pretty daunting. In the wet, it's going to be pretty scary for these guys. So they head downhill and see just how long it is before the race director, Sven Stopper, is happy for the safety car to peel in and get the race underway. Esteban Ocon leading from Felix Rosenqvist, really knows that he needs to put points on the board, but in this race, if he just hangs on to second, I think he'll be pretty relieved. He may not have the pace to go after Esteban Ocon, but we will see. But if he can hang on to second place, that will be his best of the season and a bit of a relief more than anything for him. But of course, although we've seen the cars in the dry, we've yet to really see what they're capable of in the wet over the course of the weekend. We know that certain drivers have excelled around here in the dry race and qualifying sessions that we've had so far, but in the wet, it's a whole new ball game. So what setups have the teams been able to quickly put onto the car for a wet race? Those more experienced teams that have been here over the years will perhaps be better placed. If you take, for example, Van Amersfoort, which is the team for whom Max Verstappen races, that team has never been here before, so therefore it's a squad certainly in the dark a little as to the optimum setup, whereas the likes of Prema Power Team or Mucker or Carlin have been here many, many times over the years. So is Verstappen going to struggle? We'll wait and see. He has not raced here either. It's his first year in car racing. He's got a great karting pedigree, has Max Verstappen, son of Jos Verstappen, of course, the former Formula 1 racer who is here as ever to support his son. And Max Verstappen, a very spectacular driver, is carving a name for himself in Formula 3. He's had a win already. That came at Hockenheim just a week ago when the previous 3 races were held. Yesterday he got himself onto the podium for 3rd place in race 1. He starts 3rd in this, and he's 3rd at the moment behind Felix Rosenqvist as the cars work their way through Foch. It doesn't look that bad, does it? But it's still very slippery. And the drivers with warmth in the tyres itching to get on with this. There is Verstappen for Van Amersfoort Racing. His Dallara is one of the Volkswagen engine cars. You can see powered by Volkswagen, emblazoned on the airbox. 2-litre engines they have. No longer do the regulations for Formula 3 necessitate the engine to be based on a standard production engine. Indeed, this year they can have fuel injection that they couldn't have before, and we have a new engine which is badged NBE, Neil Brown Engineering, which for so long has looked after Mugen Honda engines, but now this is a new unit that the team has built from the table up, really. And they are to be found, those engines, in the T-Sport cars, Torriel and Goddard. And in its infancy, the engine is developing nicely. So 3 laps are done behind the safety car. The field working its way through the Virage de la Gare, the station corner, and then up the hill, this very, very steep climb. And the drivers then still in the same formation that they left the grid. It's only when we get to the start of the race proper, when the safety car peels in, that they can think about overtaking. So Esteban Ocon continues up front. All of this, of course, is going to eat into the available time. 35 minutes is the maximum time allowed for the race, 29 laps. It was always going to be a bit touch and go in slow, wet conditions, but now that we have the cars working their way uphill on the 4th lap behind the safety car, then it's clear that we're not going to get, I don't think, 29 racing laps in before 35 minutes are up. So it's going to be a case more of looking at the clock, I think, here. So as the cars swing their way through now the Parc Beaumont section and once more towards Foch, waiting to see whether or not the safety car might peel in this time. Dennis van der Laar turning his way through Foch. Van der Laar, as I say, pulled some good moves yesterday, and looking at the timing screen to see whether there's information as to the safety car peeling off. Not yet, I'm afraid to say there isn't. Dennis van der Laar turning out of Puigneró. Downhill they come. Van der Laar's first target will be Antonio Giovinazzi. That's the one he wants to try and find a way past. Antonio Fuoco, a race winner this year, has had a pretty torrid weekend as well. He crashed in free practice on Friday and therefore just lacked track time by the time he got to qualifying. So he qualified badly. He struggled in the race yesterday and didn't really make too much progress in the set qualifying session either. So Fuoco, who came here with, as ever, his extended family and fan club cheering him on, and with a reputation as a race winner, just has not been able to deliver. And whilst Ocon is winning and racking up the points, all his championship rivals are struggling, it seems. Mitch Gilbert yesterday was the ramp for Alexander Toril, the Australian driver. Going well this year, in fact, for Fortec, got good speed as he's evinced at Silverstone and at Hockenheim, as the Van Amersfoort guys look on, ready for the start of the race. But Mitch Gilbert starting this 9th in number 9. Cars turning their way uphill, and he's just ahead, in fact, his Fortec teammate on the grid. Fortec, a bit like Prema Power Team, a busy squad this weekend because they're running cars in the Formula Renault race as well. Now, is the circuit getting any drier? There is the man who leads the race notionally, Esteban Ocon. And as the field now turns towards Parc Beaumont once more, up front behind the safety car, it's still grid order, of course. Ocon from Rosenqvist from Verstappen. Esteban Ocon, Formula Renault star the last couple of seasons. Now turning his attention to Formula 3 and coming into this as the man to beat. So the cars head down towards Puigneró, out of the hairpin, chinking around for warmth, and if the safety car is due in this time, which I think it must be because the cars have all bunched up now, Esteban Ocon wants to lag back and then accelerate away and try and steal a bit of a march over the opposition. So we are about to get things underway. The safety car peels in, and it will be at the end of lap number 5 that we go to the green flag. Then the cars sprint away, and so round 8 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship at Po is about to get underway for real. The green flags now greet the cars as they come over the line. The spray is increased as at a proper race pace. We're racing now down towards turn 1. Ocon does get a small advantage over Rosenqvist. Verstappen runs 3rd, then it's Blomqvist ahead of Jake Dennis, and Giovinazzi comes through next as they work their way now then up through Virage de la Gare. Wait to see who the heroes are going to be on this first lap to gain places. Felix Morales was looking for a way past Gustavo Menezes in the pack. The drivers have got to be careful, of course, not only with spray, but also trying to overtake means you go offline where there's even less grip. Uphill for the first time, out of Pont Oscar towards the Lycée Bartou. Ocon scrabbles out of the corner. He's getting away, but Rosenqvist has got Verstappen up behind him. This is the first wet race we've had all season, so now we'll see who the real brave ones are in the wet conditions. Verstappen, I would have thought, was going to be top of that list, but as the cars work their way for the first time towards Parc Beaumont, the race leader is Esteban Ocon, and he's doing his level best to break away as a sideways Verstappen attacks Foch for the first time. Jake Dennis there in the red, white and blue colours, 5th in the Racing Steps Foundation Carlin car. He's everybody safely through. They are certainly the leading group as down towards Puigneró they come for the first time in proper race conditions. Jake Dennis understeers out wide. Is he going to hit? Oh, he just avoids the barrier, but I thought that was looking a little bit dangerous for him for a moment. Jake Dennis got away with that, but you can see how treacherous it is still on coldish tyres. He's also got Giovinazzi right up behind him. So Jake Dennis avoids what could have been a big moment. gets away with it. He's lost time, but he's kept the place, but he's going to have to go defensive. Trouble is for Giovinazzi, now he's in the slipstream, he's also in the spray. His visibility is reduced. What he has to do now is try to force a mistake out of Jake Dennis. So this is for 5th and 6th places. Blomqvist is the man ahead of them. Ocon, Rosenqvist, Verstappen, the top 3. Blomqvist is 4th, Jake Dennis 5th, Antonio Giovinazzi in 6th spot as the cars climb uphill once again towards Pont Oscar. Under the bridge, back on the power, uphill. You see as Dennis puts the power down, how the back wags round on him. It'll be the same coming out of this corner if they're not careful. Through the Lycée Bartu, and if anything, Giovinazzi who just starts to lose the back of the car ever so slightly. An effort is made there on the inside, heading into the hairpin. I think that was Fuoco trying to make a move. The car's power uphill, and somebody gets forced out onto the pavement, and that, losing ground, was Michele Beretta, who went off yesterday. Beretta fights back as they climb uphill. The leaders go through Foch then. Mitch Gilbert is fending off John Bryant Meisner, and the pair of them are being caught a little by Jordan King's dark blue Carlin Volkswagen engined Dallara. There is the leader, Esteban Ocon, but he's not getting away from Felix Rosenqvist, who on this lap, in fact, has been quicker than Ocon in the first sector by 0.4 of a second. So Felix Rosenqvist knows that he has a chance of winning this race now. He's perhaps happier in the wet. It's the first time Ocon has raced a Formula 3 car in the wet, so Rosenqvist's experience now could be coming into play. The leaders work their way downhill, heading towards the timing line once more. Ocon, Rosenqvist, Verstappen is the order in the top 3. Then Blomqvist is 4th, Jake Dennis runs 5th, Giovinazzi is in 6th spot. On to lap number 8 as there an effort is made against Lucas Auer. Nicholas Latifi it is, right on his tail. Both of these drivers need to be higher up. They are 13th and 14th at the moment, out of the points. We've had a change lower down as well. Tatiana Calderon has got herself up past Gustavo Menezes, and also Felipe Guimaraes has got past Antonio Fuoco, whose rather torrid weekend, I'm afraid, is continuing. Fuoco now is down in 19th place. In the meantime, Esteban Ocon continues to hold sway as the cars climb uphill from the Lycée Bartu. Bit of a traffic jam towards the rear of midfield. But as the cars head towards Parc Beaumont now, lap time's starting to quicken a little bit as the tyres start to get proper heat in them. But there is drama, and Spike Goddard is in it, I'm afraid. That looks like it's at the Lycée Bartu. In fact, we've got both the T-Sport cars together, Alex Toril and Spike Goddard. And how did all this happen? Totally independently. Toril's spin's coming out, and Goddard, look, is on the outside, and there's a bit of contact, and he's hung out to dry on the outside. He can go nowhere. So both the T-Sport cars having independent dramas, but as it happens, same corner, same lap. Meantime, the gap between the leaders is coming down because Rosenqvist now is chopping away at this gap every sector. He's closing up on the back of Esteban Ocon. Even if he catches him, then the hard work really starts, because overtaking ain't going to be easy. But if he can force a mistake out of Ocon, they don't come easily, but he might just be able to rattle him a little bit there. Look, Ocon's car slides its way out of the Lycée Bartu. Max Verstappen is being dropped now in 3rd place. The 2 Mercedes engine cars getting away up front. That section towards Parc Beaumont looking a little bit drier, other parts still very wet. The spray's not quite so great on that side of the circuit, and now they sweep into the Foch chicane. That's been the undoing of quite a number of drivers over the course of the weekend, but the leaders get through unscathed as Ocon now sets off down towards Poimiro. Having said that Verstappen was falling away, he has just done the best of anybody in the first sector. So he's doing his best to stay with them, and he is 0.3 quicker than Rosenqvist, so he's a little bit closer. Rosenqvist has done the fastest lap of the race, incidentally, but different sectors, different strength for different drivers, because at the end of the lap, look, Ocon is getting away once more. He comes over the timing line. He has just done the best of anybody in the middle sector, and so by the end of the lap, Esteban Ocon starts to break away once again. He's still being pursued hard by Rosenqvist, but then Ocon slides the car out of the Virage de la Gare. Thankfully avoids the pavement and avoids the barrier. He's got the fastest lap of the race now to his name, has Ocon, and you can see just how hard he's pushing. Rosenqvist running in 2nd place. The gap at the start of this lap was 1.2 seconds. Ocon stabbing away at the throttle. The back keeps trying to brake on him as he gets the power down. Does it again there, but a bit of correction is applied. Same too from Rosenqvist, and he hangs on to it. Race leaders head towards Parc Beaumont once again. In third place, Verstappen. In fourth place, Blomqvist. Fifth, Jake Dennis. Sixth, Giovinazzi. Van der Laar is seventh. Eighth is Gilbert. Ninth is Brian Meisner. And down to 10th, Jordan King. Those are the point scorers at the moment. Riding the curve, Felix Rosenqvist comes through Foch, drops downhill. For the moment, though, Esteban Ocon is looking stronger once again behind him. Verstappen quicker than anybody in sector one. So the Dutch driver using all of that bravery, pushing on. Esteban Ocon comes out of the chicane, downhill now, heading towards the end of the lap. You can see how careful they have to be with the application of the power, because certainly out of the hairpins, if you stab the throttle too much, round will come the back. Surprisingly, we've not had too many dramas thus far. The leaders go across the timing line, with Ocon still looking as though he is the man in charge. Good little battle developing here. John Brandt Meisner under attack from Jordan King. This is the squabble for 9th place. And in fact, in 11th, going with them now, is Ed Jones in the second of the dark blue Carlin cars. John Brandt Meisner, the Swede, counts downhill. Jordan King, last year's British champ, gets into the wheel tracks as they come over the timing line. Now, can he make a brave move heading towards Virage de la Gare? Let's see. Through turn one, up towards Virage de la Gare now. Jordan King carries the speed into the corner, but there's no gap. John Brandt Meisner has that line covered. Good defence there through the corner and uphill. So Jordan King is denied. Ed Jones perhaps needs to be mindful that Sean Gallagher ain't too far behind him. And then you've got Lucas Auer in 13th, ahead of Latifi and Serrales, all of whom should be higher up the order than that. Bad qualifying has condemned them, I'm afraid, to be in midfield at the moment. John Brandt Meisner sideways coming out of the hairpin. Is that going to give an opportunity for Jordan King to challenge? In the meantime, the Verstappen camp looks on. John Brandt Meisner fighting with the car, though, as he heads towards Park Beaumont now, up towards Foch. Traction at a premium, visibility not too bad thankfully. Now the spray is going as John Brandt Meisner clatters over the curves. Did he get away with that? I think he did, just, yes, but that's exactly the sort of moment that was catching people out yesterday. You rattle over the curb, you drift wide and you get snared by the tyre barrier. Brian Meisner again, a bit of understeer at Point Miro, runs a bit wide, but there's not enough room there to enable Jordan King to get up alongside. They are still tied together. This for 9th place. Over the curve goes King. He's back on the power now, heading downhill. John Brandt Meisner has recovered, I think, from that little scare, and as a consequence of recovering, is now just edging away slightly. 11 laps are in the book now. Ocon, Rosenqvist, Verstappen, Blomqvist, Dennis, Giovinazzi, Van der Laar, Gilbert, the top 8. And then there is this battle for 9th position. John Brandt Meisner just ahead as they climb uphill. In a straight line, he's getting away once more. There goes Ed Jones, who runs currently in 11th. Behind him is Sean Delisle, and then the next traffic jam of cars, which is being headed by Lucas Auer in 13th place. Uphill once more goes Brandt Meisner. Max Verstappen is in the wall. Max Verstappen has spun. Is that coming out of Foch? I fear it may be. And Max Verstappen is off the road. He's backed it into the tyre barrier. It is at Foch. He's been so brave and quick through there all weekend, but now he loses the back. It pendulums round and crunch, in it goes. Does the rear corner, knocks the rear wing off, and Max Verstappen crashes out of race 2 at Pau. The marshals and the track workers at that part of the circuit are very, very good at craning a car out of the way in double quick time, so I don't expect we'll need a safety car. I'll just hoik that into the air and all will be good. As now Alex Torriel goes a lap down as Esteban Ocon powered past him heading uphill. Felix Rosenqvist then in second spot. It was 1.3 seconds the margin at the start of this lap. Now Jake Dennis in the meantime is up, of course, now one place with the demise of Verstappen, and he is going after Tom Blomqvist. So this is now the fight for third. This is the fight that's going to become 8th now. John Brandt Meisner ahead of Jordan King. Jordan King looks the quicker, but Brandt Meisner is doing a good job of defending, as there, turning through the Lycée Barthou, is Tom Blomqvist in 3rd position. Jake Dennis right up behind him. Both cars run by Carlin. Different entrance, different livery. Tom Blomqvist then, who's got a good single-seater pedigree, having worked his way through Formula Renault, and then the German F3 Cup. Dennis from Intersteps to Formula Renault to Formula 3. His first year in this championship, and he's right on the back of Blomqvist heading through Foch as we look at the cars pouring their way now through the Lycée Barthou. The field all bunching up from sort of 9th place back. It's just one long line of Dalaras. Felix Rosenqvist in the meantime has done another fastest lap of the race. He is still hustling on to see what he can do about catching the race leader. And a replay of a challenge by Jordan King, who goes through on the inside to finally get past John Bryant Meisner. That puts him up into 8th position. He worked hard for that, but now Esteban Ocon is dropping into the clutches of Rosenqvist. He's the fastest man on the circuit, and they touch, and Rosenqvist is going to go off. He spins into the wall, he goes. The rear wing is ripped off, the suspension may have been damaged as well. Ocon certainly was hit, he may have suffered as a consequence, let's see. He still leads, but has Esteban Ocon survived? Rosenqvist was right up with him at Pont Oscar. He touched the back, the contact's already been made. Before we would get to this replay, round goes Rosenqvist backwards into the tyres. Well, he tried hard, but he braked a fraction too late, I think, on too slippery a circuit, and Rosenqvist has thrown away a decent haul of points there. Had he even taken second, it would have been good for 18 points in the championship, which he sorely needs. Felix Rosenqvist out of the race. Esteban Ocon continues, but the real question is whether that car has suffered any damage. So now Blomqvist and Dennis are fighting over second place. Prema Power Team, Carlin in the top 3. Tom Blomqvist comes down to Poirier ahead of Jake Dennis. The two of them swing out of the hairpin together. So there you are, the mistakes are being made, but by some of the leading drivers. Rosenqvist, one of the most experienced F3 racers on the grid, makes a mistake and crashes out. Max Verstappen, one of the fastest and bravest drivers in the race, makes a mistake and crashes out. What else has the race got in store for us? Tom Blomqvist comes over the line, just moved across towards the pit wall. I wonder whether now preserving tyres is becoming an issue for some drivers as well. If they go for the wetter part of the road just to cool them down, it may be advisable. Climbing uphill, Blomqvist at this section gets away from Jake Dennis into the braking zone. A lap ago, this was where Rosenqvist came to grief. The car already out of the way and forgotten about. Dennis has fallen away by a length or two, but as they climb uphill now, they get to the Lycée Barthou, and again Blomqvist at this section of the circuit has got the measure. Fascinating fact 37 of the race is that on the lap that he crashed out, Max Verstappen had done the best of anybody in the first sector. Of course, Felix Rosenqvist was in the first sector when he crashed, but he'd just done the fastest lap of the race. So as soon as anybody sets a purple lap time or sector time, disaster looms. To Poirier comes Blomqvist. He turns in. He's not under immediate attack from Jake Dennis, who again misses the apex there as he's got a touch too much understeer in the car, but he controls it, he corrects it, he gets away with it, and now hustles on downhill. But his car looking the more nervous of the two, I would suggest, at the moment. He's back on the power, he drags it from the chicane downhill. The race leader has now done 15 laps. For Prema Power Team, Esteban Ocon leads the way. Second spot over the timing line, Tom Blomqvist. Is he getting away now from Jake Dennis? That gap does seem to be extending a little. Blomqvist climbing uphill. Although his dad is Swedish and he spent a lot of his time in New Zealand, Tom is a Brit. Good karting pedigree in his youth, was followed by racing in Formula Renault. He was third in the Swedish Championship. He went on to win the British Formula Renault Championship back in 2010. He then had 2 seasons in the ATS Formula 3 Cup, the sort of sub to this level championship based in Germany, and then came to the European Championship last year. He was 7th last season, and his Jagonia I Am with Carlin Delara Volkswagen running second. Jake Dennis chasing after him. Banging over the curb is Blomqvist as they come through Foch. Jake Dennis hustling on behind him. This is set to be Jake's best finish of the season. He had his earlier best yesterday when he was 4th. Now it looks like 3rd, and his first proper podium finish is going to go his way. Drama for Tatiana Calderon, and by the look of it, Felipe Guimaraes, who has collected her. Let's have a look at this. Guimaraes up the inside, over the pavement, into the side of Tatiana Calderon. She gets turned around, and the two cars just get locked together. That was Guimaraes, I think, being a bit too optimistic. He has got away with it, and Tatiana Calderon in the Joe Zeller Racing entered, but Muka Motorsport operated Delara is a retirement, and Tatiana Calderon will go somewhere, but only with the crane suspending the car out of the way. She's not, I'm afraid, going to rejoin the race. we are on lap 17 out of 29 or 35 minutes, depending on which comes first here at Pau. It is round 8 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship, the race being led by Esteban Ocon. And that was Jules Simkowiak you were looking at in the pit lane. I just was looking to see if there was any damage to the car, but you could see, but Simkowiak is into the pit lane, and I fear into retirement as well. So it has been another drama-filled race, this 8th round of the championship. It's led by Esteban Ocon from Tom Blomqvist, and Guimaraes now heads for the pit lane. Broken. And he's going to lose time as a consequence. There's another good here. Number 16 right on his tail now is Michele Beretta, who retired yesterday, but Beretta has caught right up. It's getting a bit wetter, I think, once more as well out on track, but Michele Beretta sprinting along on the tail of Gustavo Menezes, who's had a top 10 finish this year. Menezes new to the Pau, of course, new to racing at this level, but acquitting himself pretty decently. The cars over the timing line for 4th and 5th. That's Giovinazzi, and then behind him is Dennis van der Laar, and there's somebody else that has gone off into the wall. Now that could conceivably be Felix Serralles. Let's try and see who's gone missing from the lap chart. Car off at Parc Beaumont, and the car's spun, it's clattered into the barriers, so the officials are there to try and sort that out. As in the meantime, yellow flags will greet the cars, and the safety car, I think, is going to be deployed this time. Yes, it is. So all of a sudden, everyone's going to bunch up. So Esteban Ocon goes past the incident zone. And let's have a look. There's the aftermath of it. It is Ed Jones, by the look of it, who has not survived. So Ed had a crash on Friday. In fact, at Foch, he's had a drama in this race at Parc Beaumont. So the safety car is deployed, and the huge advantage that Esteban Ocon had, that was over 5.5 seconds, will dwindle altogether as Tom Blomqvist will get onto his tail. This time around, safety car boards greet the drivers, and Esteban Ocon has done exactly the right thing. As soon as he saw the boards towards the end of the lap, he backed it off, coasts over the line. So the race order: Esteban Ocon is the leader, Tom Blomqvist is second, Jake Dennis is third, Dennis van der Laar is fourth, and if he stays there, will have his best of the year by some margin. Then, sorry, I should say Giovinazzi is fourth, ahead of Dennis van der Laar. Giovinazzi's transponder has a glitch, and it was late coming up on the timing screen, but he is there fourth. Van der Laar fifth, Mitch Gilbert sixth. In 7th place is Jordan King. 8th in the points is Latifi, who's worked his way up past John Bryant Meisner as well, and 10th in the points now as well, Lucas Auer. So the order has to remain the same behind the safety car. The race leaders on lap 19 out of 29. How many more racing laps are we going to get into the time allowed? We're heading towards the end of 35 minutes, that's for sure. What we don't really want is for the race to end behind the safety car. There's always a feeling of anticlimax if that happens. But Esteban Ocon it is who leads the way. The gap that he had was over 5.5 seconds. The gap that he's got, it's an irrelevance really, but it's 1.4 seconds. So it shows you just how fortunate some drivers are. The safety car has come out, because it does bring them back into the mix. Out of Parc Beaumont they turn through Foch. There is Esteban Ocon at the head of the train. Just outside the points, Felix Serralles in 11th, Antonio Fuoco 12th. I just wonder on the restart if they can do anything to gain ground. Latifi getting himself up past Jordan King before the safety car line was reached. So Latifi is now 7th, Jordan King is 8th. But Esteban Ocon, as he has done all weekend, leads the pack. Never headed. He's had 3 pole positions already recorded. He was the man to beat in race 1 yesterday, in which he also not only had the win, but set the fastest lap. Now, the fastest lap had been claimed by Felix Rosenqvist before that tangle. Ocon got away with that pretty lightly, didn't he? Despite the fact it looked like a fair old whack in the back. He has survived, and he continues to lead as we've got 4 more minutes of the race remaining. It will, of course, go to time, and in race conditions, 4 minutes is around about 3 laps, but it might only be 2 more laps behind the safety car. What we want is for a 1 lap green flag, blast to the flag ideally, but the safety car heads uphill. It doesn't want to go too slowly because then, of course, it becomes dangerous with all the temperature ebbing away from the tyres. So they have to go at a reasonable pace, but by doing that, of course, they diminish the amount of opportunity for more racing laps. The cars turn through Pont Oscar now, and Esteban Ocon thinks we've been here before. They started behind the safety car. They might finish behind the safety car as well, but we shall see. If the race can be restarted, then rest assured the race director will do just that. Ocon is set also, if things stay as they are, to win the rookie competition. Jake Dennis second in that, and then the third of the rookies, a long way back, 12th overall, is Antonio Fuoco. So the cars currently turn through Parc Beaumont. The slippery surface flag is there, possibly because of a bit of debris on the road that the marshals are warning the drivers about. Tom Blomqvist in second. He's been a winner this year. He had a victory at Silverstone at the very start of the season in the first round of the championship, but he's had a pretty lean time since then. So Tom, I think, will be very pleased to get back on the podium. There is Jake Dennis, who has got the lapped car of Alex Torriel behind him. Blomqvist had a fourth, a sixth, a fourth, a fifth, then a retirement, an 11th yesterday in that race where he had to carry the grid drop. So safety car should peel in this time. Ocon lags back, and with the circuit just looking a tad drier, we have got 2 more minutes. Safety car is indeed in this lap, so we are going to go racing once more. The cars come through the chicane. Ocon will accelerate away, and look at the advantage he manages to pull already. Tom Blomqvist not really on his toes there at the start, so Esteban Ocon, just like yesterday, underlines how good he is by controlling the restart absolutely perfectly. There's a very slow Alexander Torriel coming over the line, being overtaken by all and sundry. In a way, I suppose he's doing the right thing, keeping out of people's way. He's a lap down, letting them carry on racing unimpeded. So Ocon it is who leads the way, but climbing uphill, Blomqvist is fighting back. He may have got mugged off the line, as it were, on that restart, and losing a few lengths, but he's fought back and goes round the outside, heading into Pont Oscar, but it doesn't pay off for him. He tries to get the switch back going uphill. Blomqvist is taking the fight to Ocon now. Esteban Ocon suddenly has to stick out his elbows. There's a gap, is there, on the inside, coming out of the corner for Jake Dennis. That soon disappeared. Contact in the middle of all of that is Jordan King. He's going nowhere. Cars scatter left and right. We've had the change for the lead. Blomqvist has done it, heading towards Parc Beaumont. He's gone round the outside of Esteban Ocon, who has dominated the race, and then almost within sight of the flag. He's going to lose out to Jake Dennis there. He's under attack, is he? Yes, he most definitely is, because Antonio Giovinazzi is right up with him. Now, we've got cars off at the Lycée Barthou. There's one without a rear wing there you just saw going through, one of the Prema Power Team cars. Just wonder whether or not we're going to be able to get another racing lap out of this. It depends on the state of the track. Somebody's off at the hairpin at Pomereux. Suddenly a car just appeared in shot. There it is. It is Nicholas Latifi. He was the one that had lost his rear wing. He's got a rear puncture as well, and now he's in the tar barrier. It has all kicked off, but now look, Blomqvist absolutely storming away. That safety car has given him an absolutely golden chance, and he seized it with both hands. Ocon, then Dennis, then Giovinazzi in the yellow car, trying on the outside. The really curious thing is why Ocon is losing so much time. He's in danger of dropping off the podium if things stay as they are, because out of nowhere, that car suddenly looks slow. Jake Dennis is being held up, that's for sure. Can he find a way through? It's the last lap of the race. They climb uphill, but Esteban Ocon, who had such a massive advantage, is now very definitely on the back foot. Through the Lycée Barthou, past Antonio Fuoco's car, which is out. Being craned out of the way, Jordan King's car. Sorry, Jones' car, I think I should say, which is being craned out of the way. But up front, the race leader continues to be Tom Blomqvist, but now Ocon is responding. He's got away from Jake Dennis, who in turn has got Giovinazzi on his tail. And both of them are being caught now by Dennis van der Laar as they head downhill. The last lap of the race, and there are 4 of them tied together for second position. Esteban Ocon, as Latifi's car is craned out of the way above them, is the man at the head of this queue, but Tom Blomqvist is the man leading the race, and he's looking good for victory as they plunge downhill once again. There is the checkered flag. Tom Blomqvist takes a second victory of the season as he comes across the line. In second place is just going to be Esteban Ocon, ahead of Jake Dennis, ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, and then behind them Dennis van der Laar for 5th. 6th is Mitch Gilbert with damage. 7th Lucas Auer. 8th over the line Felix Sorales. And then for 9th place, Roy Nissani, who was way back, like last on the grid, and gets into the points with Hector Hurst 10th over the timing line, with all the dramas that came at the end, with cars dropping out, with cars with damage. But the real question mark is what was going on with Ocon's car. Before the safety car, he looked so dominant, and then on the restart, just powerless to do anything about Blomqvist. So Tom Blomqvist it is who is the race winner, and a very happy team. The Carlin Mechanics for the Jagonia I Am with Carlin team. High five one another. The celebrations begin, and the winning margin 4.5 seconds. So Esteban Ocon will be rightly disappointed with what was a race that was certainly going his way, and Blomqvist had been such a distant second before the safety car. He was, what, 4th early on and making no progress, and he comes through a surprised and surprising winner. Tom Blomqvist wins from Esteban Ocon and Jake Dennis for the podium. Giovinazzi 4th, Van der Laar 5th, Gilbert 6th, Auer 7th, Sorales 8th, Nissani from last on the grid 9th, and Hector Hurst breaks into the top 10. 11th, John Bryant Meisner ahead of Michele Beretta and Gustavo Menezes. Riccardo Agostini comes home 14th, Guimaraes 15th after a pit stop, and Toril 16th. But Jordan King, among a long list of retirements, Fuoco, Jones, Calderon, Shimkoviak, Rosenqvist, Galile, Verstappen and Spike Goddard all fail to get to the finish. So a lot of very frustrated drivers, some because they didn't finish, some because they perhaps feel they could have done better. And Esteban Ocon will have a tale to tell at the end of that race as to just what happened on that restart lap. But he had the margin, didn't he? He made the break coming over the line. Within a couple of corners, Blomqvist was back on his tail, and the Volkswagen engine car, the jump coming out of the Lycée Barthou, was right up alongside and went through to take the race lead. And after that, Ocon straight away fell into the clutches of the pack behind. Big disappointment for him, but a very impressive drive by Tom Blomqvist, and it goes to show, certainly on a street circuit and in greasy conditions, it's not over until it's over. But had it not been for the incident for Ed Jones that brought out the safety car, then surely Esteban Ocon would have been home and damp as the race winner. Tom Blomqvist scores a 2nd win of the season. Only he and Esteban Ocon are double winners, bear in mind, and Tom, a more experienced Formula 3 driver, so he will very shortly make his way to the podium. Esteban Ocon for 2nd and Jake Dennis for 3rd. Esteban Ocon wins the rookie competition from Jake Dennis, and the 3rd of the rookies, Michele Beretta, who finished down in 12th place. For the podium, it will be Tom Blomqvist, Esteban Ocon and Jake Dennis. And Tom Blomqvist takes off his crash helmet as Jake Dennis, his teammate, to say well done. And more congratulations from the Carlin team. But Tom Blomqvist in a few moments will make his way to the podium. A very quirky race. Drama right the way through it, and a result that looks so unlikely 3 laps from the end. Behind the safety car, Esteban Ocon had been the dominant driver, and then all of a sudden he struggles to hang on to 2nd place, and he had to make the car very wide, even doing that. Photos taken from Carlin's drivers, and a very happy Tom Blomqvist, congratulated by
well done.
Stop it, the race director. So that's, I think, half the story we've seen. The other half is going to be piecing together who went to which and to whom and why people had problems, because it was as much what was happening to the likes of Ocon after the restart that had given us this result. There is Esteban Ocon, who will still have a very commanding advantage in the championship, but will no doubt be frustrated that another win got away. The conditions here are due to improve over the course of the day, so we should be good for a dry 3rd race. Was it setup that was the real key on Blomqvist's car? As the race wore on, it got stronger and stronger. Well, we shall find out. We'll update you for race 3. So, as the fans read the Journal de la Grand Prix, the drivers make their way to the podium, and there will be 2 podium ceremonies. The first for the overall top 3. The second podium is going to be for the rookie competition. The dignitaries will be there, and so 2 of the Deutsche Post girls. And very shortly, the podium ceremony will get underway for the end of round 8. But this is the man of the moment. Tom Blomqvist and Jake Dennis, his teammates in the Racing Steps Foundation colours, will join him on the podium. 2 Brits and a Frenchman, because Esteban Ocon will be the driver for the middle step on the podium. And any moment, the drivers will be there. But the teams have got a lot of work to do before we get to race 3. There's a lot of damage. I don't think, in fairness, there's a lot of serious damage. It might be broken suspension and smashed wings, for example. Nothing fundamental to the floor or the chassis of the cars, but they'll still be busy through what's meant to be the lunch break. So I can't imagine that we won't have anybody on the grid, any gaps for race 3, but the teams are going to work hard, and the spares department that's operated here by Anthony Boyo, the man that runs Double R Racing, that's already well in profit, believe me, over the weekend, and it's going to be busier and even further in profit, I think, in the next couple of hours. So the drivers are almost ready. They have to trudge down the pit lane and get round the back of the podium building, but out they come. Tom Blomqvist for the top step of the podium, a second win of the season. He wins round 8 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. Esteban Ocon takes second place, and Jake Dennis finishes in 3rd, and they're joined on the podium by representatives of the Jagonia I Am with Carlin team. So Tom Blomqvist takes the win, Esteban Ocon second, Jake Dennis 3rd. Ocon looking a bit, don't want to say po-faced about the defeat, but the defeat has come, and as Pierre Bang, the managing director of Total, steps forward to hand over the trophy to Tom Blomqvist, the winning team's trophy is in a moment going to be handed over by Eric Sobat, who is the sports representative of Po, and then for second place, the trophy to the rather grumpy man with the arm folded, Esteban Ocon at the other end of the podium, who is not taking this defeat terribly well, it has to be said. Bear in mind, he was hit early in the race by Felix Rosenqvist, but the gap continued to grow, and he was at 5.7 seconds before we got to the safety car period. So that might have been part of the story, but I would have thought it would have kicked in, that damage, a bit sooner than it had. But either way, Ocon takes second, and Jake Dennis receives his trophy from Eric Soat for 3rd place. And the drivers will be encouraged, I think, in a moment to get together for photographs. The champagne is at their feet, but they may decide that they need to stay as dry as possible because they've got another race to come later on. But Tom Blomqvist looks mighty pleased with his win, and Esteban Ocon looks the exact opposite. So everybody gets together for the photographs. If you spot a smile coming from Esteban Ocon, you win a prize, I think, because the disappointment there is palpable, isn't it? He, in the end, finished 4.5 seconds back, and his advantage 3 laps from home was greater than that. So he takes his trophy and takes his champagne and takes his leave. He's got to come back in a moment as well to have the rookie podium. But Tom Blomqvist, who is not a rookie, is going to celebrate the moment, and so also the Carlin team, because this is the 2nd win of the season for Tom. It's the 2nd win of the season for the Jagonia I Am with Carlin operation, and a very well-deserved win for Tom, who kept out of trouble while other people were doing silly things. He goes back to the top step for more photographs, but as some of the fancy drivers like Rosenqvist, like Verstappen, were making mistakes, so Tom Blomqvist was able to keep a cool head, and he came through, and the obligatory selfie is required on the podium. I tell you, the media centre at Po is full of photographers, but there's nothing quite like a selfie on the podium with your iPhone, is there? Tom Blomqvist takes his leave, and the rookie podium will get underway in a moment. And it has been a very good race for Carlin, as out now comes the rookie winner, Esteban Ocon for Prema Power Team. He can force a smile on the top step. Jake Dennis taking his best finish of the season, second in the rookies, and then the third of them, Michele Beretta, onto the podium as well. So Esteban Ocon hears the French national anthem and perhaps thinks that should have been for an outright win, but it was not to be. Second place is still no disgrace, and a rookie class victory. Pierre Bang hands over the trophy, the managing director of Total, for second place. Now Jake Dennis receives his trophy from Eric Sobat, the sports representative of Po, and Michele Beretta's trophy will be handed over as well by Pierre Bang, who makes his way back onto the podium. And Beretta will be a happy man. He's been in the walls a bit this year. He's been involved in a few incidents, but a podium will do his confidence good. I know it's not an outright podium, it's a class one, but even so, he will be very, very buoyed, I would have thought, by that. And a good drive to keep out of trouble, where we had 16 of the 26 starters making it to the end. That was all. So the drivers make their way from the podium. There is, of course, the third race of the weekend still to come, and that will be just after 3 o'clock local time. Po is a glorious setting. Even in the wet, it still looks right in the shadow of the Pyrenees. And around the circuit that has had a wet start to round 8 of the championship, headed away after the safety car peeled in by Esteban Ocon. And there was drama right from the start. Alex Toril had a spin, and Spike Goddard was hung out to dry. Then we lost Max Verstappen. He did it all on his own. The car looped around, but the tyre wall was magnetic. Verstappen crunched his way in, as then we had the battle between Jordan King and John Bryant Meisner. Rosenqvist made contact with the back of Ocon's car and spun himself into the barriers. He wasn't the only one in grief, because then the other Muka Motorsport car of Tatiana Calderon was turned around by Felipe Guimaraes up at Belize Batu, and Ed Jones went off backwards into the barriers at Parc Beaumont. That was his second shunt of the weekend, and it brought out the safety car. Esteban Ocon's monster advantage disappeared, and although he was on his toes at the restart and he managed to sprint clear of Blomqvist within 3 corners, Tom was on his tail and he attacked coming out of Belize Batu. Latifi was attacked lower down the order. Jordan King got involved in it, and as all the attention was on cars avoiding bodywork and avoiding each other, Blomqvist got himself onto the outside line, swooping towards Parc Beaumont. The traffic jam at the hairpin was sorted out, but Blomqvist came through to score victory, and he did so by 4.5 seconds from a troubled Ocon, who just repelled the challenge of Jake Dennis with Giovinazzi, and then Dennis van der Laar following over the timing line. A delighted Tom Blomqvist takes honours in round 8 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship at Po. Delight for him, delight for the Dragonia I Am with Carlin Mechanics, and a second victory of the season with his teammate Jake Dennis on the podium from Carlin as well. Makes it a good result, both personally and for the team. Well, we still have one race to go here at Po. It is the 73rd Grand Prix of Po later this afternoon. Esteban Ocon will go into it as the championship leader ahead of Tom Blomqvist with Lucas Auer third. Max Verstappen is now down to 4th ahead of Fuoco and Giovinazzi. King 7th, Jones 8th, Latifi 9th, and Jake Dennis racking up points as others fail to finish now. He's rounding out the top 10. th is Felix Sorales, who is ahead of Felix Rosenqvist and Mitch Gilbert. Dennis van der Laar is now 14th. Roy Nassani takes some points to go 15th ahead of Spike Goddard and Gustavo Menezes. Hector Hurst scores for the first time in that race. He's now tied with Sean Galisle and John Bryant Meisner, who has a point as well. Riccardo Agostini and Felipe Guimaraes have got points, whereas Beretta, Toril, Calderon and Szymkowiak have yet to score. The 73rd Grand Prix of Po will be round 9 of the FIA Formula 3 European Championship. That's coming up at just after 3 o'clock local time. Join us for that if you can. But for now, from a damp France, from David Addison, goodbye.